It's New York Comic Con week, and it's time for the SOS Weekly Reviews. Number, I don't know. I think have we hit 30 yet?
It might
I'll
be
have
30.
to go back and check it. I'm Mike, and I'm alongside with
Dan, who is not going to see Joker nor going to New York Comic Con. So,
and our other fellow co-host Vince is out because he is on his way to New York Comic Con right now.
lucky.
So he's going to be indisposed for this weekend. We wish him all the best up in New York this weekend. And I'm sure he'll have a very large call segment for us next week.
Oh, unlike any other week?
Well, hey, sometimes he only has one book where it's like 9 minutes, and he has 3 books which are 5 minutes. It's you take what you can get, and you hope it's good.
That is true. So,
but do you have a whole segment this week, Dan?
Yes. So you probably already know the books I'm going to talk about. I'll go through them really quick. So first book here. Well, you just show yourself and not me.
All right, you cut out from the stream. So
did I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh shoot! Am I back or no?
You're back. You're back.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's my bad. It's my bad.
Okay. So first book here is DC New Frontier by Darwin Cook. Really, really excited to read this. So I'll kind of give you a little glimpse of the art.
I read this, so I know it looks great.
Well, just for our viewers out there, as another PR ad, I didn't realize how thick of a book this is. This is huge as a trade paperback. So really excited. Gonna read that. Hopefully it's soon. And then other book, which I'm gonna save for our eventual Daredevil podcast, which is hopefully coming down the line soon.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. It's Daredevil Omnibus by Wade, Volume 1. So pretty lit. Gotta just get the second one.
Man, you gotta watch this after you read New Frontier.
Oh yeah, I certainly will. I think we actually did watch it together as a club a while ago.
Yeah, that would have to be like 3 or 4 years ago, though.
Yeah, so I'll have to watch it now with context. So.
Yeah, you'll read the book and then you can see how much they cut out because they cut out all the stuff on Dinosaur Island.
Oh shoot, that sucks.
Well, I mean, they had to fit it into 72 minutes. They did the best with that they could to fit it in 72 minutes. It's arguably the best. It's arguably the best of what they did for these direct-to-video movies.
Yeah, well, that's really cool, though. Wish Marvel did stuff.
That's your haul segment for this week?
Mm-hmm.
World's fastest haul segment, everyone.
See, that's how I am.
All right, so let's get into this week's books, which is Bloodshot #1, which is our retro book that Vince gladly had us select last week. This is the 90s Valiant, which Vince, we know, is a very, very big fan of. So I'm sure he's upset that he can't be here to cover this week, but we're going to try to do the best we can to keep his spirit alive, per se, when we're talking about 90s Valiant, and what better way to talk about it than with Bloodshot #1 by Kevin Van Hook as the writer and Don Perlin as the penciler. This was very standard to me. Like, it looks like a 90s indie book does. It's like very heavy colors, like almost saturated, like pumped up a lot. And then also with it is this outlandish character brandishing like a gun vest, and he's got like war paint all over him. And it's very outlandish, and he's just like a hitman. So we see him opening up, like scoping up some hit, and he goes and intercepts this briefcase, and he gets it. Also, he's got a healing factor because it's the 90s, and every character has to have a healing factor.
Wonder what character they got that from.
Yeah, I wonder which character they got that from. It's so 90s. He has a sword. He has guns. He like slices a dude's hand, like fingers off. And it's like all about like this government espionage of like, but he's like this ultimate badass. I thought it was okay, but I have no interest to read beyond this. And I think the cover's pretty ugly. Like, I think the interiors are much better than the cover. I think that's a really rough cover, personally for me. But it's revealed that near the end of this, like there's a secret government espionage, like we said, that Angelo Mortal, oh, we thought he was dead, but no, he's really this master hitman Bloodshot who's after all these guys that wronged him. So, Dan, what do you think of Bloodshot #1?
Pretty much a lot of the same stuff you said. In terms of the art, it kind of reminds me of like a cross between like it kind of reminds me of like the production quality you see in like I wouldn't say it's on par with like the Marvel graphic novels, but like it feels a lot like that type of production value. I mean, I don't know what it is. It doesn't look like a regular like, four color, print style type of stuff that you would expect from this era. Um yeah, I mean it's pretty graphic too. I mean I think one of the opening splash pages shows him like shooting a guy's head out and you see like blood's flying out the other side of his head. So
Yeah,
a little graphic, but I don't know. I mean, I think yeah, it is a little over the top with the whole storyline. It just seems really cliche at this point, but I can imagine back in that time it was like this is really amazing, like this is revolutionary. But yeah,
I would counter that though, as I don't think there's anything really groundbreaking here.
no, I mean that's the thing. Like, it just seems like a retread and like pieces that were taken from other better stories of other characters.
But for a little bit of background knowledge, Don Perlin, the penciler on Bloodshot here, is I'm getting direct notes from Vince because this is the stuff he wanted us to cover.
Of course.
Is he was a kind of a journeyman veteran artist who had a long run on Werewolf by Night, including being the co-creator of Moon Knight. So he's got that to his name. Also a late '70s artist on Ghost Rider, and he did the Defenders for 6 straight years. But his career also spans all the way back to the '40s. He worked for some stuff from Charlton, and from '87 to '91, Jim Shooter hired him as the art director, working under John Romita Sr., I believe, at Valiant. So um, he kind of once again journeyman artist who got names for credit. Kevin Van Hook has some comics critics before, but was basically a no-name starting at Valiant. He scripted tons of their books, but primarily a 40-issue run on Bloodshot, which we just covered the first issue of. He went into film, and then he'd pop back up into comics something later. One of the last things he did was the 4-issue Oracle the Cure miniseries during the Battle for the Cowl era for Batman, when it was like after Bruce was gone during Morrison's big long run. So it was like the couple months layover between Dick Grayson becoming Batman. Oracle got a miniseries, and it's kind of really the last time we've seen Oracle. It was the last solo book she had,
Okay.
I believe, and I think that it was collected, but it's a pretty hard to find trade. But I think it was okay received, but I've never read it. But that's Bloodshot #1. Is that something you'd want to read more of? I
Um,
think no.
no, I don't think so. I would like the only Valiant stuff I've read besides Bloodshot is I think Solar the Atom or whatever I think it is, and
Solar, the Man of Adam, yeah, something
yeah,
like that.
and I think that's better than this, but that's not really comparing a lot. So,
And so with that, let's get into this week's books. And Dan, kick it off with Batman #80.
so Batman #80, kicking off, like well, not kicking off, but continuing the City of Bane storyline. We get a pretty much this issue is Bruce coming back to Gotham and pretty much taking back, I guess, the city from his father. We get a lot of scenes with Batman kind of taking down a bunch of villains that are the patrols, like the police patrol for the for Gotham. So that's really cool. Obviously, Mike and I were discussing off air. John Romita Jr. I guess I don't know if he's guest drawing this issue or if he's going to continue on with the rest of this run or if he's just drawing this issue or whatever. But he draws this issue. We were talking. It's not the best art from him. Obviously, I mean, not a lot of stuff that he draws these days is really that good. I guess.
I think him on Batman is better than when he was on Superman and like the waning days of the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps that he's doing his like signature rain effect on all the pages, like Gotham's in this huge rainstorm, and the darker colors I think help him a lot more than the kind of day and bright colors of Superman. I'd argue that for him.
Yeah, I think that's where he kind of gets his time to shine. But yeah, pretty much this issue is just Batman taking out all these patrol police people. Catwoman is doing some stuff too, and at the very end, Thomas kind of finds out that his son is here, and he goes down to the Batcave, and we find out that Damian is being held captive by Thomas, and he's about to shoot him in the last panel. So we'll see how that comes out.
And
And
Bane's next request is that kill the boy because Batman's back in Gotham. I thought the sequence with Hush on the street was pretty cool. I think Batman's ears are drawn too long in this issue, for my take. But I think the part with Kite Man with the hell yeah, having that come back after so many issues after we haven't seen it in a while was a great callback to King's Run here. I laughed at that. It was a pretty good moment. And we get further developments with Gotham Girl as she's kind of beginning the process of her breaking down using the drug that gives her superpowers. So we're seeing Thomas Wayne deal with that while now also having to go kill his grandson in the next kind of beat here for that. And I'm curious to see how it's going to shake out. Like I've said that before, but I think another good issue. I don't believe John Romita Jr. is the artist on the rest of this. I think he was just a guest in it. I think he was a guest artist on this.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. I mean, I don't see him because I know he's still doing Superman year one, right?
Yes, there's one more issue of that to come out.
Yeah, so and that's really weird too because I think his art in that is a lot better than this, but I'm assuming he probably had more time to work on that versus this. So
well, the number, yeah, he would, but also the pages are different because those Black Label books are different page sizes. They're like almost wider pages.
yeah, so he probably has more stuff to work with. So,
yeah, but that's Batman. What happened in Black Cat number 5?
Black Cat number 5. So, honestly, I'm really kind of digging this storyline.
Hey, man, you're raving about it every time it comes out. You say it's good, so.
I mean, the covers. I mean, I might actually submit this for a Cool Color Friday tomorrow.
I think this cover's good.
Yeah.
This J. Scott Campbell and Sabine Rich cover, I think is really good. I think the coloring on it is better than ones we've seen in the past, but I'll let you carry back on.
No, you're good. Yeah, it kind of has like that James Bond vibe with like the rotating eye. But yeah, it's also kind of misleading too because Spider-Man doesn't appear in this issue at all. Pretty much this issue, as as we saw in the last issue, is the Black Cat getting out of the negative zone. So in the last issue, she got caught in the negative zone trying to steal something from the Fantastic Four, and she got caught in there with my God, is it Johnny Storm? Wow, how can I not remember?
How
Yeah,
do you not remember the Human Torch's name?
I remember the Human Torch. Oh my God. Yeah, so she got stuck in there with the Human Torch, her goons, and then this guy that was working with the syndicate, the art syndicate, to try to take her down. So they all kind of get through there. They realize that like they're fighting Blastar basically, and they realize that Blastar has like this like this thing that he's wearing that like if they try to destroy him, it blows up the negative zone and they'll be stuck in there forever. So one of her like goons kind of like engineers a way to get out of it. They get out of it, and pretty much what happens is, the guy that helped her get out of there was the guy that was trying to track her down and bring her to the art syndicate because she stole stuff and didn't get back to them that she should have. So the guy's just like, okay, I'll walk away from this since you saved my life, and then she gives him money to keep him quiet, and then pretty much the rest of this issue is just them escaping again, and the last little thing, the little thread we're kind of held on to for the next issue is the art syndicate that's trying to track down the Black Cat, for what she steals and doesn't give to them as part of her, bounty. They find out that she's working with the Black Fox, which we've known as readers since the beginning of this whole issue, since this whole run. So that's kind of the trickling thing. So now I think the syndicate is going to try to go after Black Cat even more now because they find out that she's working with Black Fox, which, any Marvel fan should know. Black Fox is like kind of like the original cat burglar that Felicia Hardy's father worked for, and she, by fact, after her dad's death, started working for. So, there's a lot of things that are boiling in this issue. Obviously, most of it's just them getting out of the negative zone. You get a appearance by, I think it's what's the name of that computer like assistant thing the Fantastic Four have? Is it Herbie?
It is Herbie.
Yeah, so Herbie shows up in this at the beginning. The whole Fantastic Four, for Yancey Street gets shut down because of what's happening in the negative zone. So like Herbie's kind of like blocking off that area, and like Sue comes home with like groceries, and she's like, "What the hell is going on here?" But yeah, the art, Mike, you and I talked about this before we went online. There's some really up close panels of like certain characters, especially Sue Storm, that are just really ugly looking. But
Yeah, the eyes are a little bit too far apart when I was flipping through it in the pre-show, but I thought I for the most part I think the art in this book, from what I've seen, is pretty good though.
oh yeah, I agree. It's just certain things that are like a little like you're like, oh, that doesn't look right. So, but yeah, that's Black Cat number 5.
And continuing on, as you take a drink for the working man there.
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil number 12, which was, I think, pick of the week contention, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, considering that I only read 6 issues, I would say.
Yeah. By the way, I'll come out right and say it. Like, this is like a third runner-up this week because it's a strong week when I get into Immortal Hulk. I think House of X number 6 takes it for me. I had really a lot of fun with that, but this still continues to be very good.
Yeah, this to me is my pick of the week, just because of what I read. But yeah, Daredevil number 12 by Chip Zdarsky. This just feels like Brian Michael Bendis, Brubaker-esque type of storyline that we're getting to now, and it's just boiling over to the point now where like Mike and I were discussing, this issue is pretty much just like the fulcrum of the characters of Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk in this storyline. The status quo for them both at this point was that, sorry, I keep saying, was that Matt Murdock was he like a parole officer?
It's his current job, yeah, he's a parole officer.
Was a parole officer. Yep. And Wilson Fisk was obviously the mayor of New York. So in this issue, they kind of break away from those roles and they go back to the roles that they always had and we've always known them to have. Matt going back to being Daredevil. In this issue, he goes to save that guy who's impersonating Daredevil using, Nelson, Foggy Nelson, pretty strategically, I think. And I thought that was a pretty clever way of utilizing him for this issue. Having him kind of come in there and being like, "I'm his lawyer. You need to let him go." So that was kind of cool. And then obviously Fisk going to this dinner with these higher up, I guess politicians, or I'm not sure exactly who they were, but eventually like them pissing him off to the point where he kills one in a bathtub. And we're kind of left with that at the end of the issue, which to me just feels like a Daredevil issue. It feels like the Netflix shows. I know that's not the same medium, obviously, but it just feels like a Daredevil story to me. Like, what's going to happen now with these two characters? I mean, they've gone back to their roots, and how is that going to affect the people they've interacted with so far up to this point? So, Mike, I'm curious to see what you think about this as well.
You mentioned the Netflix show. It's paced like the Netflix show.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zdarsky definitely watched that, but I mean, if you look at that show, I think if you want to isolate it, it's arguably the greatest comic adaptation of all time, and it's really what any adaptation in a comic book television setting should be aiming for, as far as like the benchmark. Because if that's your benchmark, I feel like that's everything should be held at that standard for that, because it's such a good show. 3 seasons of television, even if like season 2, a little bit of it's bad, but those first 5 episodes of season 2 are still really good. I like all the stuff with Matt here of like being very cautious to make sure no one's going to get killed or like horribly maimed when they're on the rooftop and he's getting overrun. and then Elektra showing up and taking out all those people non-lethally and saying, "Hey, let me train you again, so basically you can get your confidence back." And then we have juxtaposed with Fisk trying to be this well-maintained mayor who's now going back to his very vicious ways of he was horribly disrespected by those in that lunch meet or that dinner meeting, and he just viciously beat the dude and killed him, which is what Wilson Fisk would do.
Yep.
So it's kind of it's them falling back into their old ways, but in different styles, which I think Zdarsky's played with that a lot, and it's really, really good. Marco Cicchetto is so good on this book. I'm so happy to have him back. And I know he had to take a break to catch up for these issues, but I think it was well worth the wait because since his return, the book has looked fantastic again.
Oh my god, yeah, the art in this book is fantastic for sure.
And with that, let's talk some DC zombies that aren't zombies. It's the anti-life equation in DCeased number 5. Would you believe if I told you I'm still having fun with this?
Kind of.
This is the second to last issue. And Tom Taylor is kind of, I think it's to say we like Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor does a lot of good character stuff very, very well. He gets characters. I think sometimes his stories are a little hokey and bad. That's where his faults come into. But he really understands these DC characters like Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman, because he writes them very well. And we left the last issue, at the end of issue 4, a giant nuke went off with Captain Atom exploding, and it took out 3 cities, just gone. Washington, Baltimore, and Metropolis were just wiped off the face of the earth.
Oh, Baltimore was wiped off?
Yeah, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Metropolis were all wiped out from this huge explosion. And Superman, because all of his friends and survivors he had placed on the roof of the Daily Planet, so he thinks they're all dead. But no, turns out the Black Canary, because she has the Green Lantern ring, was able to shield them all in a bubble really fast. And Luthor crawls out of the pile and he's like, "You know what, Superman, truce. We gotta work together." So we get kind of this hopeful part where the heroes are trying to rebuild society. So Poison Ivy controls all of Gotham. Damian's become Batman. So they're trying to strike a deal with Poison Ivy and Harley to get survivors to stay in their area, as Superman has transformed the Fortress of Solitude into kind of a safe haven for heroes, going, "All right, what do we do next?" And Luthor is like, "Guys, we got to leave the planet." And they have a moment where Lois punches him because he becomes a huge asshole, as he's trying to make it look like he's still better than everyone here. There's still fun stuff with John and Damian here, but it turns out as they're going through, the Martian Manhunter comes back, and he was infected, so he comes out and he takes out a bunch of heroes and he infects the Flash. So the Flash is now running so fast that it's a numbers game. What's going to happen when the fastest man alive can infect as many people as possible? So Superman takes off, and because he knows he can't beat him in a race, he goes the counter way that Flash is going, and just runs through the Flash and just kills him. But the Flash was able to stick him with 2 fingers before he died. So Superman, we end this with Superman being infected, and he says his goodbyes to everyone, and he tries to fly himself up into space before he turns. But because he took too long saying his goodbyes, the end of it is his heat vision going crazy, aimed toward Earth. So the rest of the heroes are going to have to deal with an infected Superman. As the end of the story was called Hope Lost. Trevor Hairshine's art is really, really good here. He draws a great Superman. This is Taylor took this very we're kind of gonna get this hopeful ending. No, everyone's gonna be dead by the end of this book. I'm sure of it by the end of the next issue. But I enjoyed DCeased number 5. I don't think I'll ever read it again after this, but thinking of what this was going to be at the beginning, I think it's turned into a pretty fun miniseries that's definitely better than Marvel Zombies.
I feel like with a premise like that, that's the only logical thing that would probably have to happen is Superman get infected and for that to be like the final, like the lead into the final issue. I think that'd be cool.
I'm pretty sure like they teased that. I think Taylor teased that no one was going to be left alive by the end of it. So this was a pretty good ending with Superman getting infected, coming back to Earth.
Oh yeah, that sounds cool.
So the book that Vince and I have been waiting for, Ghost Rider #1 by Ed Brisson and Aaron Kuder, with Danny Ketch back in the helm as Ghost Rider. But really, it's a Johnny Blaze book too, because it's still dealing with him being the King of Hell. The crux of this is it spins out of the story we got in Marvel Comics Presents Damnation, where Johnny Blaze became the King of Hell, and the Absolute Carnage Ghost Rider one-shot. So it's been the slow build to getting Ghost Rider back in the fold, but we open up with Johnny Blaze kind of quickly summarizing how he's become the King of Hell and how he's kind of not fully knowing how his powers work, and he needs someone to help him out. So he goes and visits Danny Ketch at his bar, and we get this kind of cool moment where like Johnny's just standing there as Danny like just takes out this giant monster, and we have Lilith trying to take over Hell, trying to usurp Johnny, and basically the whole crux of this is Johnny trying to get Danny to basically come out and help him and get off his ass from stop being like sorry for himself after his mother's death, just drinking himself into a drunken stupor all the time. But we end this with like Johnny going back to Hell and knowing he has to fight for the crown there. A lot of stuff going on. Aaron Kuder just goes crazy with the art here. Awesome like demon visuals of all the action. But this is really, really cool, and I like it. And Ed Brisson, like I already looked, like he clearly was a fan of the Howard Mackie stuff from the 90s with Danny Ketch, because like a bunch of old characters are back here. We see Danny's old girlfriend. We see characters like Lilith. So like Ed Brisson's totally locked into the Ghost Rider lore here and bringing these characters back into the fold. Dan, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, much of the same for that you mentioned. Doesn't Danny Ketch own that bar or no?
Yeah, he bought that bar.
Okay, yeah. So
He's a drunk that bought a bar, which is really just not a smart idea.
yeah, I think it's funny. There's one part where he's like, I'm gonna go to a bank, and the bartender's like, she's like, I don't know if there's a bank open at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, but good luck. But yeah,
There's definitely not.
yeah, I mean, just I don't really have a lot of background with the Ghost Riders. But this to me just seems like a really good story to kick off. It has a lot of characters. Just looking back to what we've read in other stuff before this, with the Avengers, it just, that stuff was great, but it didn't belong in an Avengers book. So I'm excited to see that they're finally doing a new #1 with the characters that I think all of us have kind of waited for to see. And, this is how it should be. If they're going to do a Ghost Rider book, I mean, involve all the characters, all the supporting characters. That's how you make a book great, not just with one Ghost Rider, I guess. But yeah,
with so many characters, they have to kind of have a place for all of them, and I think having Johnny be the King of Hell is a cool idea.
mm-hmm.
And it brings Danny back to the fold. We haven't seen Danny in a very long time.
Yep.
Especially like it as a star. Like he was like, I know the stuff with Daniel Way and Jason Aaron back in the past, it was Johnny in the forefront with Danny at the side. So it's really kind of the first time since the 90s that Danny Ketch is the star of a book again, even though he's sharing it with Johnny again. But what are you going to do?
So I have a question. So the Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who's that?
It was in the show?
Yeah, is that Robbie Reyes or no?
It was Robbie in the show.
Is it?
They had like that brief moment where they showed Johnny Blaze.
See, that's really weird because like Danny Ketch's been around longer than Robbie Reyes, right?
Correct.
That's a little weird.
Oh, I mean, I don't watch that show. You're the one who watched that show. We know that Robbie's Ghost Rider series on Hulu got canceled.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, that's no longer happening. But that's it for Ghost Rider. I'm very excited for it. Vince bought this 3 times this week. He bought 3 copies of it. He bought the standard issue and both variants. So as a big Ghost Rider fan, he is very hype and for the success and longevity hopeful of this book. But House of X number 6, Dan, we're almost done. We're almost there.
Thank God.
But no, but this is really, really good. It's my pick of the week.
I mean, it probably is, but like I'm not high enough on my evolutionary level to know what Jonathan Hickman is doing.
Listen, we still don't fully know what Jonathan Hickman is doing, but you have that moment where it's all starting to click. And when this is all collected, I know you'll read it and you'll be able to catch up.
Yeah.
But this whole issue was about kind of the rules of Krakoa. Now that all the mutants are gathered here, it's revealed who the Quiet Council is, all except for one name, the Red King. For spring, we don't know. Vince was suspect to who the people in the council for summer were going to be. He thought it was going to be someone from like the Summers family, but no, it's Storm, Jean Grey, and Nightcrawler. Which I guess Jean Grey kind of is a member of the Summers family, depending on which iteration it is. So all the names, the ones that we didn't see last time, so like Mr. Sinister, Exodus, Mystique, I already mentioned Summer, and then Cypher, Krakoa, we followed the last issue. Apocalypse is on there. So all but one name's revealed, and then like we get the captains. So like our different captains, I guess, for the teams are going to be Cyclops, the Gorgon, Bishop, and Magic, which all makes sense, I think, for what we've been seeing in this and the books teased. So all kind of giving out how those kind of the government's going to work around here. But the rest of it is, what are the rules for Krakoa going to be? As kind of simplified for mutant law, and they come to the conclusion that it's going to be make more mutants, murder no man, and respect the sacred land of Krakoa. Which comes to the next order of business, which is, what are we going to do with Sabretooth? Because he's broken kind of two of those laws many, many times. He's killed multiple human beings, and he can't die, so he's in a deal. But they also say they don't want to have prisons on Krakoa. So Charles kind of has a moment where like they having his cake and eating it too. So what they do for Sabretooth is they sentence him to exile, which they basically just keep him in a state of suspended animation in the depths of Krakoa. They just send him down there. So he's just trapped under Krakoa somewhere, which I'm sorry, that's a prison. That's no matter how much you want to sugarcoat it, that's a prison. But we end with the X-Men just having a giant party, basically christening Krakoa. And then we at the back of this, we have the map. We have a map laid out of all of the locations on Krakoa. So like Danger Island is like one of them, like the House of X, House of Magneto. We get the full layout of where all the locations are, which I thought was cool. Really, really good issue, I thought, here. I think I'm very confident you'll like this when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, I'm gonna try to collect this in trade, and yeah.
Immortal Hulk number 24. We open with a panel from the origin of Galactus from Stan and Jack, and then we get Joe Bennett like drawing it again. So they've been teasing that the Hulk is like, so like Galactus is like the 8th generation's destroyer. So in the 9th generation, they're hinting that the Hulk is going to be that. So that's kind of like the Hulk's basically what he's working toward here. But in the meantime, he's still fighting the general who's turned himself into the Abomination, General 14. And he's been burned. The Hulk's face has been burned off with acid. So they're wondering what he's going to do. Well, the Hulk's just going to peel his face off and throw it at the other soldiers and burn them with acid too.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. But the end of this is the Hulk going back into the Green Door with the general, and it's all of that being revealed. Doc Samson wants to stick around with the Hulk, but the Hulk takes over Shadow Base. He's like, listen, these people are done. We still got doctors here. So everything's going to turn out fine with me at the helm. So this is now the Steel Throne for the Hulk. And we get a flash to the future where the Hulk is kind of killed on Nathaniel Richards. And we get with Mr. Impossible where like the Hulk is basically going to be the 9th destroyer going forward to like the next generation of the universe, which is this a possible future we're going to see, but some really kind of cool, kind of mind-blowing stuff here from Al Ewing. I'd want to go into it more in depth, but like I'm going to have to reread it like again, and it's kind of touching on that element of Marvel that I don't fully understand as much as maybe Vince or our other friend Matt would, but this still is like really, really good, and I'm really excited to see where the cosmic scale for the Hulk being set up as like this ninth generation's kind of Galactus, just because they've been hinting even in, like, remember in History of the Marvel Universe, that's set at the end of the universe with Galactus and Nate.
Oh, okay.
So and they're hinting that they're hinting here that the Hulk has killed him. So Nathaniel Richards is the life bringer, then the Hulk's going to be like the counterbalance to that. But in this possible future, the Hulk Richards, and it's the end of the universe. So what's going to happen? Who knows? At the same time here, because we got a double dose of Immortal Hulk, we got Absolute Carnage Immortal Hulk, which God for footnotes. So they show this takes place back before this current arc of Immortal Hulk, which this takes place after issue 3. This issue pretty much all takes place in the Hulk's head with Banner, communicating with all of his different personalities. Should we bond with the symbiote? What's going to happen here? Another very good character pulled the Absolute Carnage event with Bruce Banner seeing the news report that the body of Thunderbolt Ross had been found. So that's what gets him and Betty Ross here. This was kind of like almost like a point issue for Immortal Hulk of like what happened between here and here. And I like that Al Ewing used this opportunity to kind of deeper the story here for that, because like I said, this takes place before like the arc that we've been in for Immortal Hulk for like on the run in the hotels. But this is still really good. He throws the Hulk throws like a whole water tower at Spider-Man to get his attention, which I thought was pretty funny. This bonding with the Venom symbiote. So we're gonna get Venom Hulk in the next issue of Absolute Carnage, which is how we left Absolute Carnage number 3. It's still really, really good. Ewing, I'm so happy that, because I know I've been critical of other writers and how they've handled Immortal Hulk, but having Ewing here and able to seamlessly tie it into his very long run is really, really cool. The artist on this is also really like at the end of this issue. Really, really fun stuff. Back over to DC, we have Justice League number 33. What?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. I think just one more thing I want to say before you move on. I just feel like a lot of these like Absolute Carnage tie-ins haven't really been like that intrusive into like the storylines that they try to tie into. Is that just my take on it, or do you think the same thing?
Well, I've only read 2 of them. I read this and the Ghost Rider one, and we know that Ghost Rider 1 took place before Ghost Rider number 1, and this takes place before the current arc of Immortal Hulk. I just wish Marvel currently had a better grasp of what stories happen when in their current line. But that's just never going to be plausible to happen. But at least they're trying to work towards what happens when here. But I think Absolute Carnage isn't as intrusive as War of the Realms. But I don't know if I can really say that, because like the amount of tie-ins are kind of like the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it just feels, I don't know, it just feels different for me.
No, it does, but I'm definitely enjoying Absolute Carnage more than War of the Realms. Not to say that I didn't like War of the Realms, but it was really just a giant fight. While Absolute Carnage is, I think, just kind of an excuse for Donny Cates to go crazy and Ryan Stegman to also go crazy on plot and art. But we got nothing else to say on that. Back to Justice League number 33 on the DC side of things. The Justice Doom War continues. As we're checking in on all of our different kind of split Justice League teams. We got the teams that didn't go into hyper time in the Promethean Galaxy, as Shane, the son of Hawkgirl and Martian Manhunter, is like, hey, Martian Manhunter, please, we 11th hour, we need your help here. But we know that he's been killed by Lex Luthor and Promethea. But we kind of get the Titans, like the Monitor, all of them banding together to take down Luthor and his cronies, while they're trying to hold on and get a power up from Starman, and they become the Ultra Monitor. We check in on the Flash and Green Lantern with the Justice Society while they're doing their stuff, and then Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman are trying to battle kind of the huge Brainiac that we saw. Aquaman's hanging out with Flash and Green Lantern now, as they're trying to battle Poseidon and get control of Atlantis while Vandal Savage is taking it over. So this issue is kind of like, all right, our heroes are getting hit from all sides, and we end this with Kamandi going into hyper time and asking another future version of the Justice League for help, and it's the Batman Beyond version of the Justice League with the old Superman and Warhawk and Barda and all those characters from the Timverse. So they're going to come and be wrapped into this whole thing now. So, like, if you want to just basically track it, which characters we have, we've seen the Justice Society, the Justice League Unlimited, kind of future Justice League, and then we have the DC 1 million Justice League. So we're like kind of getting every version of the Justice League all involved in this huge kind of endgame-esque battle, which is kind of pretty cool. Anytime I see like the Timverse characters, I'm always excited. You get a cheap pop from me when I see them, but I think this continues to be really, really fun and cool. I think you would enjoy this, Dan, if you were to sit down and read it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I jumped on. I think I read like the first issue of this arc, and I just, for some reason or another, didn't continue reading it. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's something that I would enjoy jumping into. So
yeah, another book that I'm enjoying, Lois Lane number 4 from Greg Rucka, and I believe it's Mike Perkins. This is basically a stealth question series, and I'm fine with it. Like, I'm absolutely fine with it, especially since we have both questions in this book now. The whole issue, though, is Lois seeing John again, and it's John having a conversation with his mom before he goes and joins the Legion of Superheroes, which Bendis has set up in the Superman title. So they kind of make peace with that, and they go off. And then Vic Sage, the original question, and Renee Montoya, the current question, are having a meet up and also catching up. And Rucka's just like completely pulling from like his other question stuff back from like 52 and Batman Huntress, because the question was in that. Like, he's just pulling from that. It's a stealth question series, and it's really cool to see both of those characters again. But the mystery with Leviathan and the secrets there are deepening. We're getting a magic kind of supernatural element thrown into this now, especially with Vic Sage being back and not knowing how he's come back to life because he's been dead for a while. And then it ends with Renee Montoya and Lois Lane kind of getting into an argument because Lois isn't telling her all the facts. So we're kind of left with the cliffhanger of Renee's going to have to know what Lois knows in order to keep up with their investigation, which means possibly exposing who Superman is. So at least that's what I got from the hint of it. But I like this, but I think like the whole Superman line with Bendis the Helm in general, it's getting a little bit, okay, the plot needs to move forward. It's getting a little like it feels like it's like when you have a car up a hill and like you don't know how to drive, so it's just kind of staying there. And it's not moving, but it's not going backwards. It's you just keep getting gas to keeping you stay on like this hump of the hill. That's the kind of way I would describe the entire Superman line right now. Which I don't know if that's an appropriate way to use that, but I feel like that's how it is.
I thought it was accurate.
But I'll at least keep coming back to this because the question's in it, and it's still being written by Greg Rucka, who loves the question, and he still writes a very good Lois Lane. I thought the conversation with Lois and John was way too convenient because Bendis is clearly whisking him away to be used in the Legion of Superheroes book. So like her just immediately being fine with her now aged up son going off to the year 3000 to help out the Legion of Superheroes, I thought was way too convenient and way too easy to write him out. But that's an editorial Bendis issue, not really an issue so much on Greg Rucka and Mike Perkins.
Yeah.
But that's Lois Lane number 4. I'm at least sticking with it. I don't know if I'm fully going to be on the ride for 12 issues, but for the 12 and probably at least through the next 2, I'll be on. Talk about Marvel Comics 1000.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
So just picking up from, I guess, the last, Marvel Comics 1000, pretty much the way this whole issue is set up, just like the last one is a bunch of one-page stories, doing a lot of different types of stuff. I won't go through a recap of all the issues, all the stories that are in here. But there were a few cool ones that I read that I thought were pretty cool. There's one with the Watcher, a bunch of Spider-Man ones. Mike, I don't know if you want to chime in on this. I didn't.
I read the Daredevil one, and I read the 2 with Al Ewing with the Eternity Mask because that's the part that I want to know what's going on, because that's the part that's also kind of dealing with Michael Korvac being turned back online, which was the big reveal at the end of 1000.
Yep, and that's really, I mean, for me, being a fan of that whole era in Marvel Comics, I think that's a really cool thing to have back now. But yeah, I'm kind of curious.
I don't know what the point of this book is. Because this was a standard-sized issue, I believe, with all one-page stories.
I think so.
And because it's not 80 pages, I felt like they were trying to cram as much text onto the page as possible.
Yeah, this to me feels like it's like stories that didn't make the 1000 book that were just into another book.
And so because you don't have like the year signifying what's special about each story, these ones really do feel like, here's a bunch of one-page stories we don't know what to do with, except for the Eternity Mask stuff, because Al Ewing has a plan here, but I don't know what to do with the rest of this. That's how that felt.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like some of this art and some of these stories are kind of interesting, but like you said, there's no central theme. There's no significance, I think, to a lot of these. So yeah, it's weird. I wonder how long they're going to continue this. I'm really curious to see.
I hope not long, because I'm already not happy about them. Number one, thinking that they deserve a 1000 issue with Marvel Comics 1000, and then having them immediately do 1001, I think is really just stupid and really dumb and gimmicky.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of these are solicited for, but I'm on it for the Eternity Mask stuff because I like Al Ewing and I want to know where that goes. But the rest of it, I don't need a bunch of one-page stories, which really are just filler.
For sure.
That's the point. Young Justice number 9. This is like probably my last issue with this book. Young Justice is still battling their counter versions of themselves on different dimensions. I believe if this is Earth 3. So like their version of the crime syndicate in Young Justice form. But also Bendis stuffs the issue of Teen Lantern in here, which she's just a girl who with her friends stumbles on like a dead Green Lantern that they see get shot by a human. And the Green Lantern was wearing like this gauntlet power pack thing. He doesn't have a ring. He's got this gauntlet pack that also has the power to make Green Lantern constructs. And like there's weird like hacking involved. It was very like disjointed and wasn't made clear about how exactly this weapon works. and then like she just flies away, and like that's how she ended up in Metropolis with the team. I don't think it was a very good origin or very fleshed out at all. Um, this book's kind of a mess for me. Like, it's either tell the story of them fighting or just make the whole issue her origin, which really should have been at the beginning of the series. But the whole series has kind of been mishandled because we have this alternate dimension time crazy story, and then we were in Gem World for like 7 issues. So it's so like disjointed and paced terribly around it. Also, there's a theme with Bendis's books lately, which have been here's a giant splash page and here's a bunch of text that aren't even in text boxes all over the page. That's a huge problem. That's something that happened in Naomi. It's happened in this. It's happened in Action Comics. It's happened in Legion of Superheroes, the 2 Millennium issues. The second one, which I did read this week, but I'm not covering the show because it was more the same. Quick segue here. Here's my review on Legion of Superheroes Millennium number 2. The Legion shows up at the very end, and it was still a Rose and Thorn story. I don't know why it's called Legion of Superheroes. The Legion's on the panel for a double page splash at the very, very end. It was terrible. But back to Young Justice. Yeah, and then it's Tim Drake and Bart trying to figure out what's going on with this alternate version, Stephanie Brown, who's Batwoman, and they get the multiverse map, so they're going to be able to try to figure out what their next course of action is. But Tim Drake says, no, I think we should stay here and help because we're meant to be here. So it seems like it's a way to keep these characters stuck here and not have them go back to the main universe, and which is where I want them to be. It's like, oh yeah, Young Justice is back, but also they're like in the like this own little corner over here. The next issue is the mystery of Ginny Hex, so it seems like Bendis is going to do like these half and halves. So you're going to like get a half issue of story and a half issue of origin for his new characters. Which my thing with that is either give me a whole issue on one or the other.
Yeah.
Don't try to half-ass it, both of it. Is what my issue with this book is. It once again, it's lingering and being dropped territory. I wanted to like this, and I'm sticking with it purely because there's characters I like that I haven't seen in a long time. But that's Justice number 9. It's not great, and it's hanging on by a thread. We'll see how this arc wraps up, but if it's just going to be them toying around in the multiverse, I don't care.
When you say that it's like a splash page with like text boxes, is that like, are you talking about like prose, like that type of stuff?
Well, yeah, there's no text boxes for the text. It's just like text splattered on the page, really lazy, like lazily. It's almost like reading prose. The way it's not comics.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps doing this with all of his books. I don't know if it's a stylistic decision that he thinks would be cool, but like it doesn't help the flow of your story with a static image with just text over it.
Yeah, that's weird.
And they're clearly being done as like decisions creatively because there's a ton of like white space on the page for the text to go into.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know what you're doing here, man, but this isn't comics.
Yeah.
You're breaking the medium. Stop.
We just gotta get like a shirt for Brian Michael Bendis that says, "This isn't comics."
Well, with it's unfair to say with Bendis because he has written good stuff, but like his DC stuff, I feel is really, really hit or miss for me, and now it's like stalling out where it's like, all right, you need to say something with your stories instead of dragging them out over the course of 5 books, which is what I got into last week. But Dan, what do you think of your week of comics this week? I thought it was an all right week. It was kind of a meh week overall.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much on the lighter side. We don't really, not a lot of the books that we normally read and keep up with came out this week, so it's kind of like an off week. But yeah, I think the one that definitely shined above the rest is Daredevil. I mean,
and for me, Immortal Hulk is still fantastic and arguably the best book being made at Marvel right now. Actually, I'm going to come out so no, it is the best book being published at Marvel right now. House of X number 6, I think, just edged it out by I thought it was such a really, really cool idea of laying out the rules for Krakoa and the mutants. And we're one issue and we're done to this 12 weeks. of story consistently. There wasn't a break. There wasn't anything behind. So HOX box is almost over. But for next week, Dan, you want to know what our retro book is?
Sure.
It is from April of 2003 for Marvel, Avengers Volume 3, number 64, which is Jeff Johns and Ivan Reis on the Avengers at this point, and it's a spotlight issue on the Falcon. So that should be pretty good.
I think I have that. Is that in the complete collections by Jeff?
I'm sure it is. I probably own it as well because I know I have both of those complete collections upstairs somewhere.
Cool.
But that's it. That's our show for this week. Get home safe. Bye.
Bye.